A beautiful Monday morning to you, sports fans. Welcome to ABS TV Sports Today on the show. My name is Ike Nwokede. Like we always say, sports is life, it never stops, and so do we. On the show this morning, we'll be telling you that Abia State Governor H.E. Alex Otti has tasked Enyimba International to win the league, the Champions League in Africa, the prestigious Champions League. Also on the show, we'll talk about grassroots football. We'll talk about the story of Agwata Football Academy. 70 players, of course, are expected to form the pioneer class of the Agwata Football Academy. Also on the show, Max Verstappen takes a 5th win in a row for Red Bulls in Formula 1. We also have a boxing. We'll talk about athletics. Tennis is also featuring on the show, and some football transfer news on the sports show. Sports Today on ABS TV. Now let's begin with our first story. Our first story on the show is about the Agwata Football Academy. Yes, so let's tell you that 70 players are drawn from primary and secondary schools are domiciled in Agwata local government area of the state that will form the pioneer class of the Agwata Football Academy, AFA. This disclosure was made by the TC chairman of Agwata LGA and the person of Dr. Chibeze Ofobike during an interview with ABS TV on Saturday, the 1st of July 2023 at the Nero Sports Complex, Nanka, while monitoring the final stages of the selection process of young boys for the academy. Ofobike disclosed that the process of selecting players for the academy, which commenced some days back, climaxed on Saturday at the Nerosa Stadium, Nanka, as a total of 70 players are out of 165 young footballers who made the final quarter from the first stage of the screening exercise will be picked to feature both the under-13 and the under-17 classes of the academy. The young politician and administrator par excellence are informed that the Agwata Football Academy is a platform that will provide the unharnessed and untapped talent in the LGA the opportunity to learn the rudiments of the beautiful game, both at the theoretical and practical aspects. And today we are launching the Agwata Football Academy as we are in the final stages of a selection process of young boys that will form the pioneer class of the academy. We anticipate that when we are through from the process that started some days back, we would have scouted 35 players each for the under-13 and the under-17 classes of the academy. The TC chairman has stated. The Agwata TC chairman averts that expectation is high as the academy will be instrumental to the development of outstanding footballers of Agwata extraction that will be proud of in a few years to come. He rallied for support from the Agwata, well-meaning individuals of the LGA and corporate organizations in making the laudable project a success. Ofobike also eulogized that the academy selection coordinator, talking about Mr. Hygiene Sokolo, who also doubles as the Agwata LFC chairman. That's the local football council in that local government, and his team for a seamless exercise during the selection process. The TC chairman also revealed that in weeks to come, the Agwata Football Academy players and officials will be embarking on a trip to Rivers State as the team is expected to lock horns with Real Madrid Academy of Port Harcourt in a friendly clash. And I can confirm to you that officials, the TC chairman and his team are right now in Port Harcourt discussing modalities for that friendly coming up later between Real Madrid Academy, expected to take on Agwata Football Academy. Well, let's get to watch the interview session we had with the TC chairman of the Agwata LGA, who is the brainchild, who is the pioneer of this, talking about Dr. Chibeze Ofobike. We also get to hear to watch Hygiene Sokolo, the academy selection coordinator, and the Agwata LFC chair, also talking about the Agwata Football Academy.
Football Academy, a platform that aims to attract young talents we have in the local government in terms of young people with the skills of football. So we intend to harness them utilizing the platform of the academy. We intend to provide them with a platform they could use to become better and develop themselves in the game of football. That's the vision we have for the Agwata Football Academy. I am very much impressed. Basically, I never knew that we have the number of talents that I have seen that are here for the trial. We've done it for a couple of days, and today is the final selection process. I am very much impressed with not just with the turnout of young people who are here gunning for a place in the pioneer class of the academy, but I'm also very much impressed with the desire, the hunger that the kids have expressed here. They are all very willing to clinch a spot in the academy, and I could say that I feel bad that we are not we don't have the capacity to take all of them. But I am convinced that we are taking the right step, and we just about can imagine what the future holds for us with the academy.
Well, today is the second segment. The first one we had at Agota local government section 8. We had about 80 candidates, successful candidates for the under 17 and the 67 candidates for under 13. Today is the final selection. We aim at trimming it down to 40 under 17 and under 13. So we are having the
That was the TC chairman of Agwata LGA. There you heard his voice first talking about Chibueze of 4BK, talking about the Agwata Football Academy. And the last time you saw the man in yellow there was Mr. Hyginus. That's Okolo. Hyginus Okolo is the academy selection coordinator and who is also the Agwata LFC chairman, talking about the Agwata Football Academy. Let's tell you that in the first selection process, over 700 young footballers under 13 and under 17 turned up for this screening exercise. It was narrowed down, whittled down to the final selection process on Saturday, where we had 167 turning up for that one. And just like I told you earlier on, that the TC chairman said there will be 35 players each for under 13 and 35 players for under 17, making it a total of 70 players who will form the pioneer class of the Agwata Football Academy. So this is new, this is unprecedented, and I will be watching out and following up on the developments as regards Agwata Football Academy. It is the brainchild and the pet project of the TC chairman of Agwata LG, talking about Dr. Chibueze of 4BK, and of course we do our part in following up with what is happening at the grassroots level as regards that one. Kudos to them for this great initiative. Moving away from that now, let's talk about Enyimba International. Yes, Enyimba International are the champions of the Super 8 in Nigeria, and Abia State Governor Dr. Alex Otti has assured that his administration will provide the needed support that will enable Enyimba International Football Club of Aba excel in Africa and win at the Champions League. Dr. Otti, who stated this during a reception and hosting of Enyimba Football Club and their management team organized by the Abia State government to celebrate the team for the feat recorded in winning the Nigeria National Premier, Nigeria Premier League held at the Banquet Hall at Government House at Umuahia, announced that government will renovate the Enyimba Stadium to make it fit for the CAF Champions League. The governor, represented by his deputy, Engineer Ike Chukwueme, to assure that the 3 months salary owed to players by the past administration will be promptly paid. While commending the team for making the state proud and country proud, he disclosed that they will get more players to prepare the team for the tournament, bearing in mind that they will face more sophisticated teams from North Africa. Responding on behalf of the team, the coach of Enyimba Football Club of Aba, Mr. Finidi George, acknowledged all that Governor Dr. Alex Otti did in encouraging and supporting them, which led to their excellent performance and bringing back the trophy to Abia State, and assured that they will not take government support for granted, but will do their best to win more laurels for the state. So Enyimba International, the stage is set now, a new government now in power, promising to support Enyimba International, and more players will come in, and expect better fortunes for the players of Enyimba International in months and weeks to come as they prepare for the CAF Interclub competition, which is in the mode of the CAF Confederation Confederations Cup, and Enyimba being the champions, they will head into this season that will be starting in the month of August. I will hear, and let's see if they will be able to win it back to back. And remember, the 2023-2024 season of the Nigeria Premier Football League will be a full season where 38 matches will be played. That's 19 matches home, 19 matches away in the Nigeria Professional Football League, which starts towards the ending of August, according to the Interim Management Committee of the Nigeria Professional Football League. Away from that, let's talk about boxing. Anthony Joshua resurfaces in the news, and Anthony Joshua will be having a very merry Christmas this year with £60 million he will be earning from a clash with Deontay Wilder, and the former two-time unified heavyweight world champion is expected to come up against the bronze bomber Brahma in December in Saudi Arabia. Before that, however, he is hoping to fight Dillian Whyte on August 12th in a rematch with the pair, having previously fought in 2015 when AJ won by 7th round knockout. Negotiations for rematch with Whyte have not been easy, as originally the body snatcher was not satisfied with the money on offer, and then he didn't want a rematch clause. This seems to have been resolved, as AJ has now removed the rematch clause, but promoter Eddie Hearn was recently asked to explain why he wanted the rematch clause in the first place when speaking to Carl Froch. So watch out for that one. Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder in December. This is a fight worth £60 million. So Anthony Joshua will be much more richer by the ending of this year. That's literally in about 5 to 6 months' time. We'll be watching out for that. But watch out, August 12th, we will take on Dillian Whyte, and then in December, we'll anticipate the fight at the bout between him and Deontay Wilder. And turning to football, according to former Napoli star Salvatore Ganni, Victor Osimhen will only play for 2 teams with UEFA Champions League football, believed to be one of the deciding factors in the next phase of his career. We hear Victor Osimhen is currently one of the game's most sought-after strikers, and is currently on the radar of many top clubs around Europe. The Nigerian goal scorer scored 26 goals in Serie A football last season and was instrumental in his side's title-winning charge. Now, though, according to Ganni, Osimhen will choose between Manchester United and Real Madrid as his next club, and interest from Liverpool, Chelsea, and PSG are still maintained. But Victor Osimhen, let's see if he will be deciding to go to those clubs I made mention of, talking about Real Madrid, or if he will be staying put at Napoli for another season after they won the league. But time will tell as regards the decision to be taken by Victor Osimhen. Moving on from that, still talking football, let's talk about the Super Falcons and their preparation for the Women's World Cup, which starts later this month. Yes, later this month, the biggest football mundial for the women or the ladies will start in faraway Australia and New Zealand. And this time around, the Super Falcons will be in action. Nigerian coaches are far better than Super Falcons head coach Randy Waldrum, according to Levant Las Planas midfielder Ngozi Okobi. This comes after the American tactician stated that he is not happy with the team's preparations for the upcoming 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup finals, and she indicated that there is a lack of support from the Nigeria Football Federation. Okobi, who was dropped from the Wildrum's final 23 players for the World Cup, insisted that Wildrum is just making excuses, knowing he will not perform at the global tournament, which will be co-hosted by Australia and New Zealand between July 20 and August 20. He is trying to find excuses because he knows he is going to fail. But I must tell you, Randy has been the luckiest among all the coaches. I'm saying this based on experience and what I know that has been happening. Okobi told the media, this man is just bringing in all these excuses because he just wants to let people know that he's not doing the wrong thing, but he is actually doing the biggest wrong thing among all of them. He told them, the NFF, he needed a camp in Nigeria, which the federation didn't want to do because they don't have money. I wish that he would just get angry and leave the job if he feels that he's being frustrated. It's not a must that he goes to the World Cup, Ngozi stated. It's just sad that the NFF will allow him to go scot-free on this interview he did. And I know he cooked this one up. He's not someone who will help to blow an issue. He is someone who tell you to shut up and go and sit outside. Randy is not a coach for the Super Falcons. Forget about our differences right now. He is the least coach that has been coaching the Super Falcons. Even our own local coaches, they are far better than him. He doesn't understand football. He couldn't stand me making some things right that he didn't teach us those the things he is fighting for, and nothing else. And Ngozi Okobi stated he's just seeking attention for people to look at him just in case he fails, which I'm not praying for, because I want them to go beyond the round of the 16. The Falcons will face Australia, Canada, and Republic of Ireland in Group A at this year's World Cup. And Ngozi Okobi making some claims here, and Rowdy One Drum will expect him to respond to some of the comments being made by Ngozi Okobi. Ngozi Okobi was left out of the 23 ladies squad going for the World Cup out there to be hosted by New Zealand and Australia. Moving away from that, let's still talking football. Let's tell you that Chelsea have signed Senegal forward Nicolas Jackson on an 8-year contract from Spanish club Villarreal. The 22-year-old scored 13 goals in 38 appearances for the La Liga side last season, including 9 in the final 8 league matches of the season. He is the Blues' second summer signing after the £52 million deal for France striker Christopher Nkunku from RB Leipzig. And the two clubs did not disclose the fee involved, but it has been widely reported that Chelsea will pay £32 million for Jackson. Pochettino is in the process of reshaping Chelsea's squad with a number of high-profile departures having been completed over the past week and more set to follow. German forward Kai Havertz has joined Arsenal in a deal worth £65 million, while Manchester City have signed a Croatian midfielder Mateo Kovacic for an initial fee of £25 million. And Jackson's compatriot Edouard Mendy and Kalidou Koulibaly have both joined Saudi clubs, while N'Golo Kante has agreed to sign for Saudi champions Al Ittihad. Winger Hakim Ziyech has also been linked with a move to the Saudi Arabia Pro League, and English midfielder Ruben Loftus-Cheek completed a move to AC Milan, and that was last Friday. A mass exodus right there at Chelsea. Players are coming in, Nkunku coming in, and they've got another player by name Nicolas Jackson for Villarreal. That's the story of Chelsea Football Club as we look forward towards the commencement of the league next month, August 12th to be precise. Some clubs are starting their pre-seasons already in preparation for next season. And still talking football, it's been reported that Manchester City could look to block a potential exit of Riyad Mahrez with Bernardo Silva's immediate future yet to be decided. Mahrez played a pivotal role in City's 2022-2023 treble-winning campaign. However, the Algerian struggled to cement his place in the club's starting 11 towards the end of the season. And according to reporter, Mahrez felt dejected at being excluded in the FA Cup and UEFA Champions League final after playing second fiddle to Bernardo Silva in the right winger position. The Portuguese star is believed to be on the radar of PSG, while Mahrez attracted interest from Saudi Arabia. Reports say Silva requested to leave the club in search of a new challenge and is likely to leave in the coming months. As a result, City are said to be reluctant to sell Mahrez and could wait off a potential suitors for the tricky winger we hear. Maybe when he leaves and when Bernardo Silva leaves, Riyad Mahrez could stake a claim for that position in the right-hand side of the Manchester City attack out there in England. And now to some Formula One news. Red Bull's Max Verstappen has continued his exploit on the circuit out there, and his imperious match towards a third world title with a dominant victory at the Austrian GP, Austrian Grand Prix, and the Dutchman's fifth win in a row moves him 81 points clear of our teammate Sergio Perez in the championship. Behind him, excitement was provided by a battle for the podium positions between Perez and the Ferraris, and Leclerc won it thanks partly to stalwart defense from teammate Carlos Sainz before Perez took third. Sainz held back Perez, charging back through the field from 15th on the grid for 4 crucial laps, which gave Leclerc the breathing space he needed needed to hold on ahead of the Red Bull to the end of the race, and the two battled frantically through turns 3 and 4 for several laps with Sainz won brilliantly, repassing the Red Bull around the outside of the turn 4 after Perez appeared to have taken the place before the Mexican ultimately prevailed. And Sainz defense meant Leclerc was 12.9 seconds ahead of Perez with 9 laps to go, and the Red Bull made no inroads into that gap before the checkered flag emanated. And congratulations to Max Verstappen, now leading in the Constructors' Championship with about 83 points, beating his teammate Sergio Perez. And in tennis, let's tell you that Madison Keys produced a dominant display as she beat Daria Kasatkina in straight set to win the Eastbourne International for a second time. And the American, 28 years of age, triumphed 6-2, 7-6 as she lifted her 7th WTA title in 1 hour and 42 minutes. And Keys breezed through the first set, and although she missed her championship points in a set tie break, she eventually closed out the contest. It was Keys' first WTA title success since the Adelaide 250, and that was in January 2020. Keys was quickly out of the blocks as she backed up a confident opening service game with an emphatic breaker to love. And world number 11, Katsakina, ranked 14 places above Keys, was risk averse for the remainder of the set, and the Russian had no answer to Keys' powerful ground strokes, and Keys beat Angelique in 3 sets as a 19-year-old to win the 2014 tournament at Eastbourne, her first WTA title. And lastly, in tennis, before we go round off the show with some football news, Australia's Nick Kyrgios says he was almost dreading returning to tennis after a long injury layoff, but now feels extremely confident he can perform well at Wimbledon. Kyrgios, 28 years of age, lost to Novak Djokovic in last year's final at Wimbledon, and has only played one tournament this year because of a knee injury that needed surgery. The start of an injury hit season saw Kyrgios pull out of the Australian Open in January, a decision made on the eve of the tournament and leaving him devastated. Surgery on a cyst growing in his meniscus quickly followed, and he was not able to return to competitive action until last month. And Kyrgios suffered a first-round loss to China's Wu Yibing at the Stuttgart Open, struggling with his movement during a stressed defeat, and then pulled out of the Hale Open the opening week. But he has been practicing at the All England club this week, saying his body felt okay after sets against a fellow Australian Jordan Thompson and American Maxime Cressy. And lastly, on football, before we go on the show, former Arsenal, Barcelona and Chelsea midfielder Cesc Fabregas has announced his immediate retirement from football. The 36-year-old calls time on a career during which he won the World Cup with Spain, the Premier League twice at Chelsea, La Liga with Barcelona. He ends his career 1 year into a 2-year contract with Italian club Como in Serie B. Fabregas says he will now move into the dugout by coaching Como's reserve and youth teams. And Fabregas joined Barcelona's La Masia Academy at the age of 10, and that was in 1997, having progressed through the La Liga Giants youth setup, and he played 212 Premier League matches and won the FA Cup with Arsenal between 2004 and 2011 before moving back to Barcelona. And following 3 years at the Nou Camp, he returned to the Premier League in 2014 with Chelsea, where he played just under 200 games. He made 68 appearances in 3.5 years with Monaco, but his playing time was limited by injuries before he moved to Como. Fabregas won 110 caps for Spain and also won the European Championship twice in 2008 and 2012, and either side of lifting the country's first World Cup in South Africa, and that was in 2010. It's been an illustrious career for that man, Cesc Fabregas, right from his days. I can remember those days, 2004, 2005, back then when Arsenal got to the Champions League, and Fabregas was instrumental in the middle of the pack for Arsenal there. I could remember the day, the match during the 2004, 2005, and when he helped Arsenal to get to the finals of the Champions League. Arsenal then saw off the likes of Juventus, AC Milan on their way. I think they also saw off Villarreal in the semi-finals and then got to the final to meet Barcelona and then lost that one in that final. But for Fabregas, greater career he has had now, and he has now gotten himself into football management and coaching with Serie B side out there known as Como. Great career he has had playing football. Well, that's about the size of the program this Monday. Thank you so much for being part of the first show for the week in a new month of July. Thanks a lot for being part of Sports Today. From the entire team, my name is Ike Nwokede. Have a lovely week, but keep sporting. Bye-bye.